Hi, everybody, and welcome to Going for Gold, brought to you by the Women's Game. This is our pregame podcast ahead of the U.S. Women's National Team's semifinal game at the Olympics, in which we'll be playing Germany. After that desperation to delirium extra time victory over Japan in the quarterfinal game, which kind of felt like getting the Wordle on your sixth and last try, I am so happy to be joined by my co-host today, newly signed Manchester City striker Viv Miedema, who is just arriving in Manchester after playing 7 years at Arsenal, scoring 79 goals, picking up a casual 2 golden boots, and now is preparing for the upcoming WSL season with her new club as we speak. Viv, welcome. Are you in your new apartment?
Thank you. Yes, I am indeed. Actually moved in yesterday, got here yesterday. First day at the club today. So yeah, finally officially in Manchester.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us on what is a very, very busy time for you. Before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody listening or watching, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Women's Game on YouTube right now, especially as these knockout games are going on. You don't want to miss any of the discussions we're bringing to you around the games. This podcast is brought to you by our good friends at Allstate, who do so much for the game across the U.S. and whom we are so appreciative. Okay, Viv, we know that you've been busy traveling this summer. We heard all about it on our recent Friendlies interview that we did together, which is still available for everybody on our YouTube channel. But now you're getting down to business for preseason with Man City. How are you feeling about getting started with a new club?
To be really honest, pretty nervous. Obviously, I've been in autopilot for a long, long time. I've been at Arsenal for 7 years, and I think eventually, as you might know as well, if you're in one place for a bit longer, you get very comfortable, and it's not really a big thing to start again. But being 28, obviously coming back from everything, it does feel like a new start. So yeah, I do feel like a little 5-year-old again who's going to practice for the first time tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I'm like so excited for you, but it must kind of feel like the first day of school. So I get that you're a little bit nervous. That is so exciting though. And with the Olympics going on in the background in full swing, we know, unfortunately, your team, the Netherlands, didn't qualify out of Europe for this tournament. So I'm curious how much you've been watching the Olympics in general.
I've literally from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, I've been watching the Olympics all day long. I loved it as a little kid and I still love it now. So if there's archery on or rowing, which we're actually good in as Dutchies, so I do enjoy that more. But obviously the football as well, I've just loved that, which I can imagine you've been doing the exact same thing.
Yes, I know. I feel kind of guilty that my job is to just sit there and watch all the games, and sometimes I type little notes down. What have you made of the soccer so far? What teams or players have been really standing out to you?
I just think it's quite similar to Tokyo 21. Obviously, how busy this tournament is really seeable, I think, in the games. I think a lot of games are more open than they normally would be. There's so many goals being scored. I think, obviously, example, the Australia Zambia game is mental. But I do think, I'm really surprised how the USA has actually been so far. I think obviously a new coach coming in after a couple difficult years as well. They've really surprised me. And yeah, I think not necessarily the strongest 4 points on or teams on paper are in the semis, but I do think they're going to be really, really good games.
Oh my gosh, you said so many interesting things in there that I'm going to come back to in a little bit. While we focus on that U.S. team, we just beat Japan in the quarterfinal on Saturday, 1-0. In extra time, thanks to an incredible last-minute strike by Trinity Rodman. It was a really close game, and there was a little bit of frustration from players and fans alike. I think we just kind of kept trying to pick the lock on what was really an ironclad Japanese defense. They were super disciplined, super organized. By the end of the game, the U.S. looked really exhausted. You mentioned this a little bit, Viv. Just the schedule and the way the games are coming so hard and fast. The players are getting a little bit worn out, but at this point, coming away with the victory is really all that matters. So we'll be looking ahead to the next game. And Viv, I want to know, in your experience with knockout round football, how much time does a team typically spend thinking about talking about that last performance, and how quickly do you have to start moving on to the next game?
I think, obviously, looking back at the tournaments I've played, you would literally use that game just to move forward. So things that you could control weren't going that good, you would look at it and then take it into the next game. But your preview from the next opponent is already right there. It's literally the next day you start watching that, who you're going to play next.
Yep.
which I think can really help teams, because if you've not had a good feeling that game, then you can just reset and go to the next game straight away. And if you are kind of in that flow and you are winning and you are feeling good, then you don't necessarily need to look back at the game you've just played anyway, which I can imagine you guys will have done the exact same in all the tournaments you've played.
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of like what you said, when there is a really tough game, but you get through it, sometimes you'll even meet that night just to say, okay, we're leaving this one here. Tomorrow when we wake up, we're totally starting fresh and moving on to the next game. We're not going to talk about this game. We're not going to watch any more film on this game. Like, this is the meeting and this is the end of it. And speaking of that, I do think there were a couple things that were frustrating for this US team playing against Japan, trying to break down that low block. I think our team performs best, obviously, when they have a lot of space to work in. Our forwards especially really thrive when they can get kind of running at full speed and isolating defenders and blowing past them. But against a low block, we're kind of struggling to create as many quality chances. And against Japan, we seem pretty content to pass it around the back a lot. We were really, really patient, maybe overly patient. So as a striker, Viv, when you're facing a low block, what do you want from your teammates to set you up for success, like from your position?
I think, as you say, it's literally the most difficult thing in football. And sadly enough, but also weirdly good enough, I've been playing a lot against a lot of low blocks in my career, obviously with Arsenal and with the Dutch national team. If you're the team on top, you are going to come up against it. I think as a 9, and especially if you play against a 5-back, then you're very isolated. And I am very dependent on people around me to make runs for them to create space for me. So I think if you look back at the games I've played in, it's mostly the movement is going to have to come from a 10 or a winger coming inside and taking that extra centre back away. Which, again, I think Japan were very, very well organized, and they're obviously... they're good on the ball as well, which is really tough to play against. But I think, for me as a 9, you want the ball in the box. But across in the box, if they play with 3 massive centre backs, there's no point of doing that. So it's finding different ways and finding little gaps. And it is still a very, very difficult thing to play against.
Yeah, and so I want to talk a little specifically about the US 9, Sophia Smith. She didn't have very many touches against Japan. And I wouldn't even really criticize that. I feel like, would it have even been smart to play into her feet back to goal when she had so little space in there? But again, as a 9, like, what are you starting to think about as you're in the middle of the game? Like, you're not getting very many touches on the ball. Are you hungry to get touches so you'll come and drop low? Or do you find it's better and more effective to stay high, be patient, kind of stick to the game plan and just wait it out?
I think that's very dependent, again, on who you play with. I think for me, as the type of player I am, I would be the type of player that would drop out and pick the ball up as a 10, and then obviously start creating things. But again, that would mean that my number 10, my wingers, even my number 8 in midfield, they will have to make them runs against the deep defending block. Where I think if you look at her qualities, it's obviously not being in a small space and receiving the ball back to goal. Like, I think all your forwards are very, very good with space, as you said, transitional when the game opens up. So I wouldn't expect her to come and pick every single ball up. I think you've got other players that are better in that. That are better in that. And I think for her, the hardest thing is to keep calm and just stay in the box and wait for your moment and wait for your chance. But I think in that game, that's the ungrateful job of a number 9. You need to be patient and you need to just work for your team.
Yeah, and it can be so frustrating to keep that discipline. I think even as an attacking midfielder, sometimes I would have to really stay disciplined in the pocket. I remember especially on that team in 2019 at the World Cup, we were really tasked with not dropping out to get the ball. So like not checking too low. And I found that to be really frustrating at times, because as a midfielder, even as a 9, you want the ball, you want touches. That kind of builds your confidence and makes you feel involved in the game. But I think at that point, again, we're back to breaking down this low block despite frustration. Some things you can do to start to break that down are like shoot from distance, take advantage of transition opportunities. Does anything else really stick out to you when you mentioned your midfielders making runs beyond you?
Yeah, I think it's mostly about stretching that back line, isn't it? Like try and create gaps, which I think when I played in Munich, we played in a 5-4-1, and the only time that we struggled was if they made two runs in behind because two defenders had to follow, and then the nine could drop in. So I think playing against a 5-4-1 or 5-3-2, or a low block in general, everyone needs to be extremely unselfish, because if you're going to have players on the pitch that are very selfish, you're not going to be creating much. Although you do obviously have individual qualities, which also the goals come, like the goal came from yesterday. But yeah, it's about being unselfish, I would say. I think that's the most important thing.
The last piece I think I wanted to harp on again, and I've been talking a lot about this in all of our coverage, is when you're playing against a low block and you can't score in the run of play, so I feel like set pieces really become a big moment to capitalize on. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, like your approach to thinking about a corner kick or a free kick in a moment where in a game your team is having trouble scoring in the run of play.
I still think set pieces are so underrated in football. Like, I think regardless who you are, I think if you're the lesser team going into a game, but you've got a great mentality in your set pieces, that can make the difference. That can mean that you can surprise that team and actually get a win. Which again, the other way around works like that as well. As you say, if you play against a low block and you know that that's not necessarily within your qualities, but you've got creative people and you've got people that can deliver the ball, then your focus should be on set pieces also. And I think especially in the game yesterday, if you look at average height of the Japanese team and then average height of the USA team, that could be a massive advantage. And that's where you could actually then win the game. So yeah, I do think also, especially with national teams, probably more time should be spent in practicing set pieces.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, again, I don't want to rub this in 2019, we scored so many of our goals at tournament on set pieces. So I really can't emphasize enough how important they are. And I think that we haven't had enough success with this US team on set pieces yet this tournament. I think they'll be paramount against Germany, but we'll get into that a little bit later, more about Germany. I do want to talk about a specific player on this US team who has really risen above all opponents so far this tournament, and that's why she's our Allstate player to watch, Crystal Dunn. We've spoken a lot about her here at the women's game, particularly because she actually didn't start for much of the year leading into this tournament. And now she has been one of our most consistent and dangerous players at left back. She assisted Trinity Rodman's goal against Japan by playing a long diagonal ball across the field. She's been composed on the ball. She's been dynamic in the attack. And Crystal has experience playing for Emma Hayes previously in her career at Chelsea. And so I feel like she might have an understanding and a little bit of familiarity with Emma's desired style of play that's just clicking right now. So I want to know from you, Viv, what have you seen from Crystal this tournament, and how important do you think she is to this US team?
I think just experience, to be honest. I think when you see her going up and down the wing, which honestly she still can and she still does. I don't know how she does that. But yeah, just very patient, reading the game, being good on the ball. I also think she's very good, obviously, in understanding what she's good in and what she's maybe not as good in. And I think, obviously, having played against the Emma Hayes team for so long, I think she's very good in basically getting the most out of people. And I think she's one of those examples. I think, obviously, she feels the confidence from Emma, and she's showing that right now. And it's not just defensively, she's also bombing on going forward, which again gives you your wingers the freedom to actually come inside and cut inside as well.
Good point.
And I do think if you look at the USA team right now, I was really, really surprised in the way they build up. They're obviously very expensive. They make the pitch really, really big. They sometimes even build up with a free back. But the ball speed and the way they move the ball around, I think is probably one of the best I've seen USA move in the last couple of years. Which, again, I think players like Crystal are very, very good in, because they are physically very strong and they get in the right positions at the right times. Definitely.
You mentioned in there that you have played a lot against an Emma Hayes team. What would you say is like the hallmark of an Emma Hayes coach team? Like, what are some of the standout qualities that you would expect?
I think they're very good in transitional moments, which again, suits your players perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I think over her whole playing career, she's made it very clear that she doesn't want to concede any goals, and that's her starting point, and that's where she goes from. And I think obviously, if you look at the tournament, like in the Olympic Games, you're always going to concede, and you're always going to have games that are going to be tough because you play a ridiculous amount of games within such a short space in time. But defensively, I think they've looked pretty solid, and if you've got that foundation, you can then actually start building, and you can get freedom to your front three. And I think that's the second thing that she does really, really well is the two up top or the three up top, whatever she plays with, just go and do your thing. You don't need to worry too much about defending. Just focus on having the ball and creating things for us. And yeah, you can really see that in the way she's playing with the USA now as well.
Definitely. You mentioned how hard and fast these games are coming and how these teams are starting to feel that and get a little bit tired. This is about to be their 5th game in 13 days, which is like, if you don't know this or haven't picked it up yet, it's a crazy quick turnaround for these players. And this US team really hasn't rotated very much. We haven't seen many substitutions put on the field in order to conserve legs. How do you imagine these players are feeling right now? Like, can you talk about how it feels physically to be at this point in a tournament? How do your legs feel? How does your body feel?
Well, I've only played the Olympics once, and we played 4 games. We obviously played the quarterfinal against you guys. Unfortunately, got kicked out with penalties.
I know that.
But I genuinely don't think I could have played in another game after that. Like, obviously, within 15 days, you play at least 3 times 90, and we played 120 minutes against each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not doable. And I also think that that's probably the only thing that can stop the USA right now. I know that in general, and it's very well known that you guys are very athletic and really fit, but that all goes out the window in a tournament like this because your body has got no recovery time. You do need to travel within the games as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really, really tough. And that's why I think the Olympics are also a tournament that are not very easy to predict who's actually going to win it.
From what it sounds like you're saying, and I agree, can you even hope to feel close to 100% on game day? Or is it way too big of an ask?
No, physically, no, definitely not. I think for me, personally speaking, I think I was at my best at the Tokyo Olympics because mentally I felt very refreshed. I felt no pressure and I actually had a great time. Like I felt really, really good going into every single game. But that was mentally. Physically, I don't know how the physio's done it and how they put me back on the pitch, but somehow they managed to do it. I think, again, obviously, if you look at the bigger calendar and players' welfare, the amount of injuries this tournament has been ridiculous, obviously, already. And it's not the way to go forward. I think it's really, really dangerous, especially girls coming back in at pre-seasons without even having a break after the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, really scared of how many injuries we're going to see this season. But yeah, besides that, mentally, you just want to give it your all because you might only have one chance of once getting an Olympic medal.
Yeah.
So you'll give it your all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely think I agree with you 100%. I think the days given for football should be extended. Outside of the opening and closing ceremonies, the tournament can be longer. I do think on game day, of course, you're not 100% physically, but there is an energy and an adrenaline that will try to carry you through. But I'm wondering, Viv, what would you do in this situation? Like, what are your go-to recovery methods? What's most important for your recovery? Sleep, nutrition? Are there exercises? Do you do the big legs? Like, what are your go-to recovery habits?
I think especially when you are in a tournament, I would definitely keep moving because if I actually just take a day off and lay on my bed, I don't think I'll move again. I think for me, in general, the mental side is really important. So if I had the chance, I would always meet up with family or friends. I would actually switch off in my room most of the time, read a book, have a bath, have an ice bath. I do actually really like an ice bath these days. Don't know why I do, but
They're good.
Yeah,
they work.
they are good. So yeah, that would basically be and we're Dutch, so we would always go on a bike ride. And if there was no opportunity to go on a bike ride, we would spin it in the gym or whatever. But yeah, that would be my main priority while recovering. And I reckon like you'll be quite similar in the sense of taking care of your body, but also your mental health.
Yeah, definitely. I think sleep, nutrition were big ones. I always loved because I could like eat as much as I wanted. So I would just like go and eat whatever as my post-game meal. And I thought that was like so awesome. Viv, you mentioned that the one thing you think that could stop the US is this exhaustion, this game over game kind of physical toll. Do you think the US team has what it takes to make it all the way and win and get a gold medal?
Yes, I do think so. I think if you look at the other teams, it's kind of the same story. I think we all know how good Spain is on the ball, but I think if you look at their last game against Colombia, obviously Colombia plays completely different to any other team at the Olympics. They're very physical, they're very direct, and they really, really struggled for a long time. And I also think you could see there that fitness again played a massive bit in that game. So yeah, I think if it would just come down to physicality and being fit enough, then I would say USA or Germany. But it depends on how the legs are going to be for the other teams too. And for me, USA are the favorites against Germany.
So I know that you played at Bayern Munich from 2014 to 2017, and we spoke a lot about German football actually last time we spoke on Friendlies. If you could just explain again here, how would you describe the German approach to football?
I would literally just use one word, and that's fitness. I think I think if you look at my 3 seasons in Bayern, we would hardly see a ball for the first 6 weeks. We would literally just run and be turned into machines. But I do think there's such a strong, physically fit team. I do also think that they've got very exciting young talents. Obviously, they've got a lot of speed up top as well with Bull, Schuller, and Brandt. And I think, yeah, they do look a lot better than I thought they were going to do. But I still think USA are favourites for that game.
Yeah, I have to agree. We played them already once this tournament, which to me is like equal parts reassuring because we won 4-1, but also worrying. I feel like sometimes when you've recently played a team and beat them, the team that was beaten has like more motivation and room for improvement, and they like approach it with a different mindset. They learn a lot from the first time around. But needless to say, I do think that we are the better team. I do think that we can beat them again, and that's my prediction. But I'm starting to think about what is Germany going to change considering that result from the first game. So Viv, if you were Germany, what tactical changes would you make?
I think that's really, really hard again because obviously we've seen Germany a lot in a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2. I do think they've got it in them to potentially switch to a 3 or a 5 back and actually just defend because again they are fit enough. They can do that. They can play on the counter. But as you say, it's a bit of a cat and mouse game, isn't it? Like I think for the USA going into it, you'll be thinking we need to do the same thing. We need to just focus on ourselves and basically do our game plan as good as we can. But Germany might come out completely different, and you are going to get a complete different game then. So maybe a slight advantage beforehand for Germany. But if you look at individuals and if you look at the team, then I'm pretty sure that Emma and the girls can pick it up quick enough to still make it their game.
Yeah, I think what I'm wondering is if Germany will have watched this game against Japan and say the US struggles to break down a low block, should we just sit in a low block? What do you think about that?
I think they could be. I think also looking at German football, I think they are very used to playing in low blocks. I think a lot of the girls have done it at club level. A lot of the girls have done it with Germany before. It just really depends on their manager. And to be really honest, I think he's the type of guy that rather goes down his way than adjusting and trying it a different way. So it's going to be interesting, I think, what he comes up with.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to find out. We spoke with Georgia Stanway earlier this tournament about some of the ins and outs of this German team. She's very familiar with them because she plays at Bayern Munich right now. One of the things I asked her about was thinking about the loss of Lena Oberdorf, midfielder for this German side, who tore ACL just weeks before the tournament. So in response to that, Alexandra Popp has been playing deeper in the midfield than where she would usually play for Germany as a striker. And I want to know what you've made of that, Viv. Can you shed some light on some of the focuses a striker would have to think about when making a positional switch in a tournament like that?
I think throughout her whole career, I have only played against Pop as her being a 6 when I was at Bayern Munich. She then obviously moved back up to a 9. She's been back at the 6 for a while, and she had an amazing Euros in 2022 playing as a 9, scoring 6 goals.
Yeah.
She's very versatile, and she's physically really strong. She's obviously probably one of the best, if not the best, header in a women's game. So she's got a lot of different qualities. I would have liked to see her play as a 9 because I do think I prefer her as a 9. But at the same time, she's really, really important for this German team. I think just experience-wise and motivation-wise, she is probably their most important player. But I think tactically, as a 6, sometimes you can see that she struggles a bit. And I don't know if that is because she just got put back or she's obviously never played with the other midfielders before. But when Lohmann came on yesterday and she moved up higher up the pitch, I thought the team dynamic actually changed and they started playing a bit better.
Yeah, well, so we've heard a lot about Germany's wide play. And now that I'm thinking about this, I wonder if they have missed having that really target striker. They have such incredible strength and speed in the wide areas that I would think that their crossing would be more effective so far this tournament. We saw Emily Fox, outside back for the U.S. team, limping off injured at the end of last game. So we're really hoping we can have our strongest outside backs out there in this Germany game to take care of these really powerful, great wide players like Leah Schuler, Clara Buhl, and Jule Brand, who you all mentioned earlier, Viv. I want to hear a little bit more about those players, Germany's strengths out wide, and how you'd think about the U.S. trying to shut down those players.
I think, as I actually just mentioned, for me, the thing that really stood out is the way USA are building up. So they're very expensive. And I think if Germany are patient and defend it well, that's where they can definitely hurt the USA. Because when the spaces are massive, you want Brandt, you want Schuler, you want Bull on the ball because they're very good individual players. They're very quick. They're really good. I think Bull is really, really good in a 1v1. I just think so far in this tournament, they lack the quality in that last pass or in that cross or in the finish. I think Schuler is obviously an opposite type of 9 as what Pop is, but she is actually still quite decent in the air as well. I just think it's about fine-tuning what they've been doing. And if that does click, then I think USA can have a really difficult afternoon. But hopefully for you, not.
I know.
But they are very exciting players. And I think the age on them is obviously they're still very young. They can still grow into the game. And it's really exciting for Germany to have that, but also ability to actually then change and put Pop back up top or put Pop next to Schuler, because if you've got both of them going into the box and then you've got your crosses coming in, that can obviously be really dangerous.
Definitely. Well, one of these players who has been serving great balls into the box, especially on set pieces this tournament, Julia Gvin, she's been a top performer for Germany so far this tournament. She had those 2 assists off corner kicks when Germany played against Australia. I want to know, Viv, how familiar are you with Julia Gvin, and can you describe what makes her so special at delivery, especially on those corner kicks?
I think she's one of the players that once I left Germany, she was really starting to break through. Obviously, she's still really, really young. She's been very unfortunate because she's had 2 ACLs to deal with already. But she's back playing, and she seems to really enjoy it. It's like she's very relaxed on the pitch. She's obviously scored a good goal as well. And she does have a lot of quality. When she took her penalty yesterday, I thought the commentator had jinxed her because he said 18 out of 18 penalties on club level have been scored, which is an incredible stat, obviously. And if coming back to what we just said, set pieces are very, very important, then you want someone like her to take the ball and deliver it pinpoint where it has to be. Even the big chance that she obviously crossed in for Sid Lohman as well, that was a great free kick.
Yeah.
The speed on the ball, where she dropped that. And again, that can come in hand for the USA game.
When I think about our US back line, we don't have a ton of height. I asked Becky Sauerbrunn about this the other day, and we ended up talking a lot about like your positioning. And Becky said that she didn't think you necessarily needed the height if you defended right. But when you think about somebody like Julia Gavin crossing in these great balls, corner kicks, free kicks, just crosses in general, what would you look for from the back line to try to stop that and prevent that?
I mean, yeah, obviously I can't really judge the height thing because just like you, we're probably quite tall on the pitch. But I would say it's all about timing because I think if you're a good jumper and you time right, especially in women's football, I think you've got a massive chance of actually scoring a goal. And as I just said, if you've got pop running in, it doesn't really matter how tall you are and how big you are because there's someone running at you. So it's concentration, isn't it? Like it's about knowing how to move together as a line, when to drop, and hopefully your goalie takes responsibility and actually comes out for the ball and catches them. Because again, I think if you look at Berger, how she's played for Germany so far, by the way, taking that penalty. Crazy, but it's your goal is really, really important in it. And then I do think that height doesn't really come in place if you can time it right.
For sure. Well, let's talk about those penalty kicks. So Germany beat Canada in the quarterfinal on penalty kicks, in large part thanks to 2 saves and a made PK by Ann-Katrin Berger, the absolute hero, Germany's goalkeeper. This was such an incredible feat, something I do have to say, Viv, we are familiar with as U.S. Women's National Team fans because a listener has done the same for us multiple times. But talk to us about 2 saves and making a PK as a goalkeeper. How incredible of a feat is that?
Well, I can't even score my own penalty, so can't even start with that. It must be amazing. I mean, obviously she's just made that big step for her leaving Chelsea to go to Gotham, and again, I've played against her for so many years. She's a top goalie. She's got so much quality. I'm not surprised she saved the penalties because I've seen her save numerous penalties over the last couple of years. Just never seen her took a penalty before, which she actually done really, really good and convincing. So yeah, goalies play a massive part in this tournament. I do also think if we do look at the load of the games, I don't think we should be going to extra time. I actually think we should go straight to penalties after 90 minutes. But that's a different story, obviously. But yeah, if that game would go to penalties, USA, Germany, I think we're in for a ride.
Oh my gosh, I know. With these 2 goalkeepers, I mean, I'm praying that we don't go into penalties at all. But with these 2 goalkeepers, Alyssa Nair and Katrin Berger, I'm like, would anybody score any goals at all besides those 2? So my question is, if you're a striker in this match, there's 2 of the best goalkeepers in the world on the field. Are you thinking about that ahead of time? Like as a striker, do you know when you're going up against a really great goalkeeper?
I don't do research to goalies. Like it's not that I'm gonna look at clips and be like, oh, this is maybe where the weakness lies, but I am a type of striker that early on in the game, I always look on how a goalie is moving. Sometimes I take an early shot just because I want to see where her starting position is. And looking back at my own games against Berger or against the USA, that is definitely something that even just peeping over in the warm-up and just seeing what she does in the shooting drill or how she kicks the ball is something that I always do. And I think so far in my career that has really helped me in being cool and calm in front of goal.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any other, this is our last question specifically about USA, Germany. Are there any other matchups on this field between these 2 teams that you'll be looking for, really excited to see? Like, where do you think this game will be won and lost?
I think in midfield. I think looking at both teams, they're probably most vulnerable in midfield. I think obviously USA has made a couple changes in the last game. Germany actually changed a lot. Even yesterday, they brought Enderman on, took Enderman back off, which was very surprising to see. And yeah, especially if Germany play in a 4-4-2, you're going to have an overload in midfield as USA, and I think that can really be a decider in the game. So yeah, I'm really looking forward actually to see how both line up and to see what they do tactically in that sense.
So the other semifinal is between Spain and Brazil. Spain had an incredibly and surprisingly close quarterfinal against Colombia, who were actually ahead 2-0 until the 79th minute and ended up taking Spain all the way into penalty kicks after Jenny Hermoso and Irene Paredes got Spain back into the game with a goal apiece. Despite this game being so close, I'm wondering if a game like that could be good for a team like Spain, who come in as clear favorites. And I think we all kind of saw them going without much challenge ahead to the final. But this was like a true challenge. It asked a lot from them to come back from being 2-0 down. And they really relied on their skill and then their passion to get them the win in penalty kicks. Do you see Spain still as the favorite of the 4 teams that are left, or did this Colombia game leave some doubt?
We all know how good Spain is. We all know how good they are on the ball, how good they can play. They can beat anyone any day. I do think, though, as I just said as well, if you look at physicality, I do think the USA and Germany might be stronger. But football-wise, and if you ask me who plays best football, absolutely Spain by far. They obviously did really struggle. I think if Ramirez would have scored that 3-0 just before she came off, then they would have never came back. But they did find a way to come back, and Hermoso made a difference coming on. Paredes scored a typical number 9 goal, very good finish, and they fought themselves back into the game. And I also do think, comparing to how Spain were maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they wouldn't have had the character to come back, and now they do, which again has probably lifted them to that next level what they're at right now.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I see it from both sides, where they did so great to come back, but I think it also showed a little bit of vulnerability. Like, they're not as invincible as maybe we all thought. So they come back from 2-0 down. They have this incredible win, and I'm sure they're riding a momentum and a high from that. But it also showed it is possible to score goals on them and to hold them scoreless for almost 80 minutes of the game. So I want to really praise Colombia. It was such an impressive and really a fearless performance from them against Spain. And Colombia's growth over the last few years has been nothing short of inspiring. So I'm already excited to see them and their continued success at the 2027 World Cup. The other quarterfinal between France and Brazil ended with Brazil winning 1-0 on a late 82nd minute goal by Gabby Portillo. France was stunned, but I'm kind of like, should they be stunned? I don't know what it is about this French team, but they can't seem to make it past the quarterfinal in major tournaments, even when they're hosting. So then is it too much pressure to host? What did you make of this French squad? What are they missing?
Honestly, I have been asking the exact same question, I would say, for the last 6 years. If you put that French team on paper, and if you look at the quality they have, if you look at how well Lyon and PSG are doing year in, year out in Champions League, I do not understand how this team has never made it to a final and has never won a major tournament. I think they've got unbelievable players, physically extremely strong, technically, individually, some of the best players in the world. But when I look at that game last night and they do go 1-0 down, you'd think, okay, this is going to be that kick that they need, and they're going to fire it up, they're going to come together, they're going to make that difference. And I just watched that last 20, 25 minutes of the game, seeing absolutely nothing of that. And I think, obviously, this is really blunt and really direct, but it's just such a disappointment. Like, they've got so much quality, and this generation has just gone to waste so far.
I came into this tournament expecting a lot. We had Janine Becky, who plays for Canada, on our very last Friendlies episode before the tournament started, and she said something similar, like, this French team on paper is the best team. And I don't really know what to make of it, but there is this lack of, like, I don't want to use the words winning mentality, but this lack of, like, let's throw it all away and just go for it. I feel like there's like almost this wall up between them playing the way that would be the difference. And I don't really know what to make of it. Do you think that hosting tournaments, they hosted in 2019 and they lost in the quarterfinal, they're hosting now, is hosting tournaments a lot of pressure?
I think it can go two ways. Like we used the Euros in 2017 to get the fans behind us and to literally like shout and support us through every single game. England have then done the same thing in 2022.
True.
And for me, it was literally the best experience ever to play at home in my home country with family and friends there. But yeah, they seem to not be able to actually get that extra energy and extra power from it, which obviously can be a mental block, like it can be pressure. I do also think if we just spoke about like a player being extremely unselfish and wanting to work for the team instead of the individual, I do think France lack a bit of that as well. If you look at how PSG and Lyon players come together, somehow it doesn't fully connect and it doesn't necessarily click the way it probably should do. Because as Janine said, and as you and me both said as well, on paper they've got such a good team.
Yeah, well, it remains a mystery to all of us. I do want to touch on Brazil, who did incredibly well to win without Marta, who got a red card in their last group stage game and gut-wrenchingly had to watch from the stands. But she was so happy when Brazil won. It was very heartwarming to see her face, and she was doing like the heart hands, and she had tears in her eyes. It was really, really sweet. But we have heard that Marta actually received a 2-game suspension for her red card in that Spain game. So she's going to have to watch from the stands again as Brazil takes on Spain in the semifinal now. Marta plays in the NWSL, Viv, so I feel like in America we see firsthand how great she is like week after week. How is she perceived in Europe? Do you all have the same reverence for Marta that we do?
I mean, I would definitely say she's an all-time great, and I think she's also carrying that in Europe. I do think people are quite confused when they hear the name Marta, that she's still around and she is still so good, because obviously she's been around for such a long time. And it's obviously like, as a footballer, I think it's heartbreaking to see someone like her receive a red card, potentially not being able to play this tournament anymore. But yeah, they've got individual quality throughout their whole team. I think I've played with Rafa Sousa, who actually got injured yesterday. I think that is a really, really important player for them to actually get back for that next game. If not, it might be very difficult. But they're a very, very annoying team to play against, are they not, in the best possible sense for them?
Yeah, I think that Brazil has so many tools. I think they've lacked almost a gamesmanship in the past where they haven't been able to close out really important moments. And so I feel like having a leader with this kind of experience that Marta has, or even Rafa has, it's scary to think of them going up in this huge game without players like that. Thinking about this idea that they want to do this for Marta, they want to get her that chance to play in a gold medal match. Do you think that that's really extra incentive for these players to win this game with Marta watching in the back of their minds, like, we have to do this for her?
I think so, definitely. And I also think, as hard as it is to miss your most experienced and your best players, I do think sometimes younger players and other players can use this as a, look, this is my moment to shine. I'm going to show you we are capable. So it can go two ways. They can actually have that massive adrenaline kick and be like, look, here we are. We'll show you what we can do against Spain. And I think with the speed they have up top, that's when Spain can be vulnerable. So if they do it right, if they defend it well, they actually will have opportunities to obviously break. They have done so in the first game they played against each other. They couldn't score, but yeah, it can definitely be an interesting game again. I do also think it's very, very weird how both teams out of the group stay on that side, so they already play each other again.
I know. It is really weird how it like shook out, but I wonder if it's just because there's so few teams in this tournament that like the bracket is just so small. But I agree that it's weird that both teams have already played each other in the group stage. Viv, we're going to start wrapping up, and I am going to ask for a couple of predictions. But first, I just want to go back. We mentioned early on you're just settling in Manchester for preseason, and it was announced that your first WSL game is at Arsenal on September 22nd. When I saw that, I was like, come on. How do you feel about immediately facing your former club in your former home stadium?
I knew it was going to happen. Beth and I said it to each other straight away. We were like, I bet you it's going to be Man City, Arsenal. I kind of thought it was going to be in Manchester, but yeah, the big comeback straight away. I am happy it's the first game of the season because we get it done and over with. I will have massive anxiety around it probably. All I can say is that I've always been loyal to Arsenal. I've always given my all to the club. And I'm just looking forward right now to start with City and to put on the City kit. And I do understand it's difficult for people, but I had to do what's best for me, and I had to prioritize me being happy. And I hope that that's going to be okay, and it's going to be a good game for everyone.
For sure. It'll be awesome. What an incredible opportunity. We are so excited for you. I want to get a Miedema Man City jersey. I think that would be so sick. I also cannot wait to watch that game. I'm so glad we were able to have you on again on this show, Viv. Your insights into the game are really, really incredible. I'm so grateful for your time. So before we let you go, let's bring this all the way back around. Do you have a prediction for the USA-Germany semifinal?
I think it's going to be 2-1 to the USA.
Woo! Okay, I'm just going to agree with you. 2-1 USA. Let's keep it the same on that. I'll copy you. What about that other semifinal, Spain versus Brazil? Do you think Marta's team can get her the opportunity to compete for gold?
No, I think Spain is going to win it. I think it's going to be actually quite convincing, 3-1.
Oh boy,
for Spain.
Yeah. I do think Spain is really tough to beat, probably the better side. And I agree with you. I think Spain is going to take it. So we got a USA-Spain final, hopefully.
I think so. I hope so. It would be really good for football, I think.
And what do you think would happen if that was like the case?
I think physicality-wise, if the USA get through the game right, they are favourites on that side. But I just hope it's going to be a great final, and I really, really hope for the girls it's not going to be 120 minutes.
Oh my God, I know. That would be terrible. Well, we can't wait to see what happens. Viv, seriously, thank you so much for being here with us. We will be here after tomorrow's game between the US and Germany, live at the final whistle with Midge Purse. Make sure you are subscribed to this podcast feed or this YouTube channel. We have so much more content coming your way this Olympics. You can follow along with us on social media at Women's Game MIB on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads. We will see everybody after the game tomorrow. Viv, thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.